Dmitry Bivol is back after 15 months with a win. Shakur Foster and Raymond Ford in a close fight. All of that today on the review show. And we're going to kick it off with Dmitry Bivol back in the action against Michael Eiffert. And other than the first round, it was relatively plain sailing, right?
Yeah, it was. He was comfortable, wasn't it, from Bivol? I think he won every second of every minute of every round. Complete domination from him, as expected. We're not going to sit here and think that Eiffert had a chance. I thought, even with the layoff that Bivol had, I thought they'd have too much, and it turned out that way. And he just, again, showed the levels between, world champions and everyone else. And I think this fight as well, again, we had it last week with Hamza Shiraz, raises questions about fighters. Okay, mandatory position, I understand that, but I think it raises questions of the quality of opposition for a world title, if you get what I mean.
I know what you mean.
They seem like two different universes apart, didn't they? You had a world-class fighter against someone who has been waiting, 3 years for this shot, and he's not really fought anyone of known. Maybe Pascal, I think the guy's name was, that he won, but that was years ago, and yeah, it just felt a bit weird, but it was good to see Bivol back out, and especially after coming back from a back injury, I think that's a positive.
Yeah, I know what you mean in terms of the opposition, but I get why they've picked this opponent in that sense.
You can understand completely why, but
also I like you say, it's ticking off a mandatory, which is always a smart thing to do to kind of keep all the belts happy. But for me, I think we talked a lot last week about Bivol and about this fight, and it was kind of like, it's not whether or not he wins. It's by what means he wins, how he wins. And I didn't really know what necessarily I was expecting from that in a sense. Did I want a stoppage? Did I want him to look really impressive? Or did I want him to just look like Bivol? Which is what I think he did, realistically. He turned up there, and if you told me, or if you'd kind of Men in Black flash wipe my memory and I didn't know he'd had back surgery, I don't think I'd have gone, oh, he looks a bit off it. He looks a bit slow. He just looked comfortable and happy, which I suppose, going forward, looking at what big fights he's got left in the sport that we want to see, it gives you confidence, because he looked like the old Bivol, the range, the jab, that controlling the distance so well, and just a really smart fighter. He got that early knockdown in the first round, and you think maybe where other fighters might really step on the gas and look to get him out of there, but I think he was quite happy to have some rounds, try and soften him up a little bit, and then maybe get a later stoppage, and that didn't come, so he kind of cruised to the finish line.
He did, and I thought when he had that knockdown in the first round, I was thinking, oh, okay, here we go, a bit of an early night, maybe a sort of statement knockout win, maybe Bivol's looking for, but as the rounds were going on, you sort of thought to yourself, you can see what he's doing here. He see the level of his opponent, and he's gone, he's nowhere near my level here, so I'm just going to take the rounds, and you can't blame him as well, because as we said, coming back from injury, he could have been a completely different fighter. He wasn't. He's still world class, and he's looking into the future. He's looking at the potential opponents to come, and for him to get 12 comfortable rounds under his belt, professional rounds, I think it's only going to put him in good stead moving forward. And he's only, for me now, Bivol can only be in big fights against big names for the remainder of his career now. They are pay-per-view worthy fights now he has to be in, and that was potentially, as we said, a one-off, but yeah, some big names coming, hopefully.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, off the back-to-back Beterbiev fights, which, we'll talk about what's to come in a moment, but off the back of those two, I think sometimes when you ask fighters to just go and go and go again in these top level fights, it can be, sometimes there is just one too many, the rolling on the camps, the hard fight. So I can understand why they've taken that moment, sorted out that back surgery. 35 years of age, though, he hasn't necessarily got that long. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but just in reality. We've seen Beterbiev carry on until into his 40s. But realistically, I don't think Bivol has a huge amount of time left in the sport. And so, like you say, it's a matter of, okay, what big fights, what big paydays from his point of view, and for us as fans and the boxing world, what exciting fights can Bivol give us? Now, we've been talking a little bit about this, and we maybe see it slightly differently on what we want next for Bivol. So, from your point of view, why is the trilogy, that Beterbiev fight, the one that you want to see?
It's simple. It's 1-1. Albeit, I think I can agree with everyone that says that Bivol won the first fight, but he didn't on the judges' scorecards. But if you put that to one side, it's 1-1.
Yeah.
And I think you can't. They're two of the best of their generations, and they can't be drawn, I don't think. And you look at some of the fights that we've had in the past, and they've gone rematches, and it's 2-0. You can go, yeah, comfortably. Don't want to see them. For example, Dubois, Usyk, Fury. We don't want to see them again. It's comfortable 2-0 victories there. But when you've got them even after 2 fights, after 24 rounds shared, and those 24 rounds were so close. Each round was so sort of edge of your seat sort of stuff where you're going, Beterbiev's got that power just to switch your lights off in a second, and Bivol can simply outbox you. My only concern with that fight is Beterbiev. Now, I haven't seen much of him on social media. I don't know what he's up to now, but my sort of thoughts would have been, if that trilogy is going to happen, which I think it is going to happen after what Benavidez and his opponent's going to happen with the WBC belt, I just think I would have thought if the trilogy was going to happen next for Bivol, Beterbiev would have been fighting either in June, July, August, and then we have in the back end of this year, Beterbiev, Bivol 3. But because you don't know where Beterbiev is at, and obviously you talk about age, Beterbiev's age as well is a massive factor in that fight, because boxing, you can age overnight in boxing, which some may say that we saw that last week with Usyk. But yeah, look, I think the trilogy with Beterbiev is the perfect fight for Bivol, just because it's a big fight, it's a big name, and I think it's someone he can beat again.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm saying this from a point of, if someone said to me, if I checked on Twitter as soon as this episode is finished recording and I see confirmed Bivol versus Beterbiev 3,
you'd be excited.
I'm happy for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's an exciting fight. The first 2 fights were some of the most high-level boxing fights we've seen in recent years. They were so good, and the adjustments that Bivol made going into that rematch in order to counter what he'd seen from Beterbiev in the first fight. And I said it in the last episode, and I think I almost certainly said it at the time. After the first Bivol Beterbiev fight, I didn't think Bivol could have fought a better fight. It felt like a near perfect performance, and according to the judges' scorecards, it wasn't enough. But then he stepped up another gear. So yeah, it's a great fight. Don't get me wrong. But, and it is the but for me, the big thing is, I see it as 2-0. I think Bivol won the first fight
isn't it? Yeah.
narrowly, and I think he won the second fight notably. And then you add on to that fact that he has now got back into the ring. Beterbiev hasn't fought in 15 months. Like you say, if he has a warm-up fight beforehand, at what level is that warm-up fight going to be? Is it going to genuinely prepare him for Dmitry Bivol? So I can only see the margin of difference between the 2 fighters from the first fight to the second fight to the third fight growing.
Yeah.
And because I see it as 2-0, it feels a slightly wasted opportunity when you've got someone like David Benavidez riding the crest of a wave at the moment, just up at cruiserweight, just beat Zurdo Ramirez. And I think a fight between Bivol and Beterbiev and Benavidez, is just a little bit more intriguing. I don't know how good a cruiserweight David Benavidez is, really. I know he beat Zurdo, and I know he looks really good, but I just don't quite know how good he is. And at the same, we don't quite know how much Bivol's got left in the tank, and I just think, I really don't know who would win that fight, because Bivol's the better boxer.
Yeah.
10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100, who is the technically better boxer? Dmitry Bivol.
Would it be for undisputed as well, Bivol Benavidez then?
Well, no, because you've got the light heavyweight fight has been fragmented. Benavidez has the
WBC.
I suppose if you did it at light heavyweight, you could get it for the undisputed.
I don't think Bivol's going up to cruiserweight.
No, I think they'd maybe do it at catchweight, or they try and get Benavidez to come back down.
I think Benavidez has to come down, surely.
I think they probably do it at like 178 or something. I
Maybe.
think they just make a slightly higher catchweight, which I don't think Bivol would mind.
That's a big risk for Bivol.
But that's what I mean. I think if you're talking big fights to finish your career, you stick him in there. But there is obviously the fact as well that the WBC have called for Benavidez to fight for the WBC title. So could it possibly make more sense for Benavidez to fight there? Bivol to fight Beterbiev, and then you have those guys meet, and then the winner of that fight Opetaia towards maybe the back
thing
end
is
of
there,
2027.
With Benavidez Bivol, I like the fight, but I think Benavidez now is going to be turning into a bit of Canelo, fighting only 2 times a year on those certain weekends in September and May. So it's not going to happen in September. So Bivol probably is thinking, I can't wait. He can't afford to wait until next May now to fight again, Bivol.
No,
I don't think
at
this point in his career, the more active he is, that's only going to benefit him. And I like the Benavidez fight, but I think if you're looking at a fight where you can earn a lot, maybe not the same amount of money, but a little less maybe, I think the Beterbiev fight's perfect. And put it in Russia maybe, or even back in Saudi, and you'll have the whole boxing world talking again because it's 1-1, and then you got another light heavyweight going like this. Hello, I'm still here, and that's Callum Smith.
Yeah,
where does Callum Smith come into this? You know, he was meant to fight David Morrell, and what happened there was David Morrell got chinned by Zach Shelley, and somehow Zach Shelley's now in the conversation as well. But yeah, Callum Smith's probably looking from the sidelines, going, "Hello guys, don't forget about me." You know, and perhaps that could be next for Bivol. You know, if Beterbiev, as much as I want it to happen, I can see a situation where we get to the point of talk in the coming weeks of Bivol going to announce his next fight. I can honestly see it not being Beterbiev, but I would love nothing more for it to be. And then all of a sudden, Callum Smith flies over to Russia, maybe Saudi Arabia, I don't know, and fights him there. And I think it would be deserving for Smith as well to get his shot against Bivol. But I just want that trilogy. Or
do you do a Smith Beterbiev rematch? You know, Smith, I don't think made a bad account of himself in that first fight, and then if you factor in the fact of the kind of the height and stock he comes into this one with off the back of his win, and then Beterbiev off the back of a loss and a narrow win, and obviously time getting to him slightly probably, it could be an interesting fight. But yeah, it seems odd. It's an exciting division because when you look at it like that, all of that, and then you start talking about, oh, okay, well, Ben Whittaker, albeit he's not at that top level yet, but he and Matchroom are certainly going to be talking about him trying to get himself into that picture.
Yeah,
there is 3 or 4 fights in and around that weight category that you could make right now that would be so exciting.
And I think that's just the depth in it, isn't it? And, you know, people forget about some of the names. You've got Joshua Buatsi probably going to be looking to come back and fight. Craig Richards, another one. Domestically now in Britain, there's so many big names, so many good talents. And Ben Whittaker's another one who's fighting at the end of this month, who's having his debut over in America. You know, he's going to open up a new audience there. Ben Whittaker's probably only 3 or 4 fights away from challenging for a world title if he continues going the way he's going and they get those fights to put him in those positions. So Ben Whittaker at the moment is probably looking at this from a distance, but before he knows it, Bivol and Beterbiev are probably going to be gone when he gets to that point, maybe in 4 fights' time. And, you know, Ben Whittaker, we could be sitting here in, or maybe not here, but we could be sitting here in a couple of years' time talking about Ben Whittaker being a world champion. And for someone that we started the podcast going on about I started the podcast talking about him, saying that I didn't quite like his antics in the ring.
I've always been on the hype train, Ben.
You have been. And for him to win a world title would be amazing. But at the moment, that top sort of positioning in the light heavyweight division, he doesn't beat any of them at the moment. But when they're gone and those belts fragment down, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think quickly, I mean, it's not who we're talking about right now. We've got other fights, but i.e. Whittaker, I think after America, and you get that commercial fight, I think he comes back to the UK and he gets a big domestic win on his record. I'm talking an Anthony Yard, a Craig Richards, or a Willie Hutchinson, or possibly a Zach Shelley, actually. I think Zach Shelley, you know, for the position he's put himself in the rankings.
That's a good point. Zach Shelley's got a lot of mentions on this podcast.
I think style-wise, Shelley is a nightmare for Whittaker. Or certainly a nightmare for the old Whittaker in terms of before he was working with Andy Lee, before we were seeing this big knockout power. Sometimes, first fight against Liam Cameron, you saw when he wasn't able to make a dent in a fighter, suddenly it was quite a difficult fight for him. And Zach Shelley is someone that you have to have some serious power behind you.
We can't overlook Zach anymore.
I said it though. I'm pretty sure I said in the build-up. Obviously, you and Ben weren't here. It was me and Reef, and I said again, style-wise, Zach Chelly's a nightmare for anyone. He's a potential banana skin for anyone because you can't shift him.
Yeah,
and he's always got that punch. People have talked about him for years as one of the biggest punchers they've shared the ring with.
We saw him up in Barnsley, didn't we? And I thought he did quite well that night. Didn't win, but did better than the judges' score.
Yeah, no, he was always in that fight. Yeah. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff in and around that division.
So you want Benavidez for Bivol?
Yeah, ideally yes. Yeah. I can sleep at night knowing I haven't seen Bivol Beterbiev 3.
Okay.
I don't think I'd sleep happy knowing that Bivol versus Benavidez never happened.
And then for Callum Smith, where do you put him? Does he
Beterbiev?
Okay.
And then Whittaker Chelly. That's my little trio.
Fair play, yeah.
So we'll have to wait and see.
Argue with that.
Let us know, obviously, down below if anyone or on Spotify, if you're watching on there or listening on there. Let us know what you guys would like to see, which one you'd like to see next for Bivol and co. But the jump down to the super featherweight division over in the States, we saw Raymond Ford and Oshaki Foster battle it out. And I thought, to be honest with you, such a high-level fight. In many ways, not the most entertaining because they sort of cancelled each other out in many ways. But as a pure boxing fight, it was really high level, and Oshaki Foster, I think, just closed it out and deservingly got the win.
I think last week we talked about it being a 50-50, and as you were sat there watching it I watched it Sunday morning back, and you're just watching it and you're going, yeah, we got this so right last week, calling it a 50-50. Normally when
we can say that.
No, exactly. Normally when we say, oh, this fight, it's quite even, yeah. Normally either one man dominates or we just get an absolute ball fest, and thankfully we didn't get that. And yeah, look, I think for the first 4 rounds I'm sat there going, okay, they're going back and forth here, the rounds are swinging back and forth, that's good. And then as it gets to eight rounds, I'm like, right, it's level, it's anyone's fight now. And then Foster, don't know where he got it from, just, as full tired, Foster seemed to put his foot on the gas and just continue to go up, and it was phenomenal. And he richly deserved the win on Saturday night. And the scorecards were a little bit all over the place. I thought 118, 112 was one, I think. Can't see that.
They were all over the place, but actually you can see why, because most of the fights, the rounds were so razor thin. It was always going to look odd. And I'm happy with the end result. I think a win for Foster was probably fair.
But we nearly had a split decision, mind, with that one. I didn't see a draw, but I think one of them had it right. But yeah, like you said, it was a bit like, I know I've referred back to it, but Usyk Rico last week, albeit people were thinking Rico was comfortably winning the rounds, they were close. And it was the same this week with sort of some of the shots being landed sort of on the gloves and all. And I just thought, from Ford, if he had that extra 10%, we could have had that draw that we saw could have been on all 3 scorecards the way it was going. And it was a tough fight to score. The only thing I didn't like about it was at the end. No, actually, I'll tell you. We won't go to the end. We'll go right to the start, the first round. The one thing I didn't like, and I hope there's a judge or referee watching, what would have they done in that position if a boxer now clearly, not accidentally, clearly pushes a fighter out the ring and throws him into a judge? The poor judge, mind, Jesus, fair play to him. I thought, honestly, when I watched it live, I went, okay, that's a point deduction easily, surely. Advantage Ford now, that's going to be a huge confidence boost. 1, it wasn't a points deduction, and 2, there's no timeout or no stoppage of the clock. And I thought, surely, either the referee is probably worried first and probably has gone straight to put his focus on Ford to make sure he's okay and just completely forgot, which is fair enough. But I would have thought surely the timekeeper on outside of the ring would have, stopped it and stopped the clock, and then we would have resumed maybe at 10 seconds. But yeah, I just thought when that happened, I was thinking, how is that not a points deduction? And the funny thing was, I did quite like it, the way this sort of Ford got up and just went, okay, I'm here now, and just walked back into the ring. No one helped him back into the ring. So yeah, I was quite shocked about that.
Yeah, it was weird. I think for me, when I watched it, I saw the clip initially on Twitter and then watched the fight, and I had presumed that Oshaki Foster will have got a points deduction for that because it did look blatant on the broadcasting camera. What you don't know is certainly from the ref's angle, but also how much bite was in the build up to the fight, how spiky it was. And I mean, the ref throughout the fight was fairly sort of fed up with anything other than boxing. Yeah. So I think he probably saw it at the time as a bit of a 50-50 that obviously visually speaking, Ray Ford came out worse from because he ended up on his backside out of the ring. And unfortunately he didn't, try and sort of feign injury and get the fight postponed or whatever, or try and, get his opponent in trouble.
I've seen that before.
Well, exactly. He took it on the chin, took the floor on the chin, but then got back in there. And I was shocked. We've got a friend, Chris, who often listens to episodes. So
yes.
Chris, if you are listening,
please let us know.
Drop us a text or a message or whatever, or comment below, just letting us know if you were in the ring and you've seen that, what you might have done. But yeah, I think it overshadows the fight. But I'm surprised that Foster didn't get something.
The good thing about it was it didn't impact the fight, because you thought, like you said, then he's outside the ring after the first round. You're going, oh, he could have caught, he could have got injured there, hurt himself, and it could have really affected him. But it seemed like he sort of bounced back from it and sort of built into it. And as I said earlier, I had it even after 8 rounds. And it was anyone's fight then from there on. And Foster was brilliant, but he should have had a points deduction, but that wouldn't have done anything to the scorecards anyway, because he comfortably won the fight from 9 rounds to 12. The other thing I didn't like was after the fight, calling out Shakur Stevenson. I'm thinking, hang on a minute, both of you are on completely different journeys. You're on 2 completely different paths at the moment in your career. You're going to meet maybe one day, but not at the moment. Shakur, get out the ring. Give the moment to Foster, because that's a huge win for Foster on Saturday. I don't care what anyone says. That the Stephen Fulton fight was an impressive performance, but for him to, he's been on an incredible run as well, Foster, to now beat Ray Ford, former world champion. I think that's another big win that he can have and another statement. And I think everyone's talking about Shakur Stevenson at the moment, but I think, hang on a minute, let's calm down a little. That fight maybe could happen, but that's not going to happen until 2 years down the line, maybe.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think the reality of the matter is Shakur Stevenson was ringside giving Ray Ford in his corner advice throughout the fight, and I think Oshaki Foster saw him there and thought, this is my chance to call him out, see if he gets in the ring. If he doesn't, I can say he swallowed it. If he does, I'll get a bit of exposure, win-win. Yeah. Without the reality of the fact that I don't think that fight happens next. And we can talk about maybe that division and what happens, but to go back to what you said, I was really impressed with Oshaki Foster. I mean, Ray Ford is a top fighter. And in reality, I think Oshaki Foster probably fought 3 different fighters in the ring on that night. The first couple rounds, Ray Ford was fighting on the back foot, counter-punching with that high guard. He then turned the fight again with a style and started still that high guard, but coming on to Oshaki Foster and pressing him. And then Oshaki Foster worked that out. And then he dropped the high guard, went into the Philly shell, and then decided to fight that way and try and make him miss rather than catching it on the gloves. He changed the game plan 3 times, and Oshaki Foster all 3 times was able to adapt to that and get the win in the end. So I've always had a little question mark over his head since that first Conceição fight, where he just seemed to just not have it and just not get going enough and not close out that fight at a level he probably should have done. But like you say, the 2 fights since, he's kind of shut us up in that sense. And for me, I think that Navarrete fight, that unification fight,
such a good fight,
is the complete sensible fight to make. Navarrete, front foot, chasing Oshaki Foster down. Oshaki Foster, rangy, technical, throws those 1-2s well. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, and I think especially after that performance against Ford, who, I'm not being funny, you sat there and you're watching it from the 8th round to the 12th, and you're going, hang on a minute, Foster's growing you and he's winning these rounds. You can't count Ford out, because that Kolmatov fight is in the back of your mind thinking, oh, could he pull that off again? And he didn't. But yeah, like Navarrete against Foster, I think sometime in the fall, maybe in autumn, would be quite good. And yeah, just another phenomenal performance. And it's sort of a performance that you hope he can build on, because you don't want this to be the sort of his top of the mountain now. He's beaten Fulton and then Ford back to back. You want him to build, and you want him to continue the momentum of big wins and potentially push forward. And if he can have that sort of performance against Navarrete, what a fight that's going to be, mind.
Yeah, I mean, the real question, I suppose, as well is what next for Ray Ford? Because obviously he kind of had that rise, and obviously there was big talk when he won that title against Kolmatov, partly because of the nature he did so, and also partly the work that Matchroom had done to kind of promote that after the fact. Walked straight into that Nick Bull fight. Narrowly lost to Nick Bull, who had gone on to improve gone on to prove that he is an absolute world champion. And then he's come back a little bit up at super featherweight now, gone in against Oshaki Foster, probably one of the better champions in the division, and just narrowly come short. So what now? Because he's got time on his side. He's only 27 years of age. Does he look to continue and maybe try and build himself another path at super featherweight? A fight against somebody like Kakache, or where does it look? Because it seems mantle to me that he's got a draw and 2 losses on his record, because he is a top fighter, but he's rolled the dice and come short on a few occasions.
And that's something that you cannot fault a fighter in doing in Ray Ford. I don't think he's probably said no to a fight. I don't know personally, but he doesn't seem the sort of character in the ring to say no to fights. I like the Kakache fight. Mauricio Lara maybe could be another name that he could fight. Oscar Valdez could be another one. You want him, though, to... I think with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, they're quite good with a fighter, and we've seen it in the past with Ford, that he comes back from a loss and he's somewhere on an undercard of a Matchroom show in the US somewhere, just having a 10-rounder just to get him back in and getting him a win. Maybe that's the route they go down, and then they line up a fight against Lara, or possibly Ryan Garner over here in Britain. He's got a big fight. Magnesi's a tough Italian fighter.
Yeah, true. I don't know if they risk Garner in that fight.
No, but what I mean is, if
be a scalp.
There's rumours of a Queensbury 5v5. I'm not being funny. That's a great fight there. But I like the Lara fight. I think for me, if I was Ford and his team, take a 10-rounder that you're going to win, and then push on again, because he's the sort of fighter that can be in big fights for the rest of his career. There's no problem with that. He is that sort of watchable boxer that you'll get action with, but you also have high skills and high boxing when you watch him. And I just hope that he makes the right decision of taking a step back now, not just going, right, that was an off night, I want to push on. Take a step back, regroup, have an easy sort of win, and then come back even stronger. And, potentially 2027, we could be talking about Ray Ford being a double-weight world champion.
Do you think possibly that Eddie and Matchroom might have a few sort of scars from Mauricio Lara?
Yes.
I.e. Wood, i.e. Warrington, and go, maybe let's not do that one.
It's a good point.
We've been burnt by that one a couple of times. The other option is as well,
Has he been done as well, Mauricio Lara?
He has previously, yeah. So maybe, but I think the Kakache fight would probably be a big risk in the form of.
Do you know another name?
But it's certainly a higher. But I was going to say Sugar Nunes would be
I don't know. No. My future world champion, Josh Padley. Where do you put him in this conversation? Nowhere near. Probably.
At the lightweight division, I think.
But he's in the rankings.
Is he?
Yeah. He's
maybe
in the rankings.
I think he might have dropped down. You might be right, because he came through at lightweight.
He might have dropped
Mark
down for this
but
weekend,
he did.
mind.
No, you are right. He did drop down after because he fought Shakur and he fought Chamberlain at lightweight, and then he went full time and dropped down, I believe. Yeah, it's an option. And it would be a good fight, but they're both Matchroom fighters.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't see it.
No, I was just joking, because I'm trying to find a way that I can get Padley fighting for a world title.
You'll have your time on the preview show to talk about that. But yeah, I think Ray Ford, Sugar Nunes is an option. Obviously, he lost to Navarrete if you want to scout, but again, it's tough fights in that division, so it's a tough way back for him. But if you've got the ability, then you'll find your way back to the top. The cream does tend to rise. Elsewhere in the world, we'll jump back to the UK. Adam Azim,
different time zones.
Adam Azim, I was phenomenally impressed with. Adam Azim's one. We were talking about him in quite some detail in the last episode, in the preview show. We spoke about obviously the Dalton Smith comparisons and the way that is those two's careers have gone in different trajectories, and how much of that is necessarily Adam Azim's fault, and how much of that is sort of promotional negligence in some sense. But I think he's proved again there in another fight that he is top draw. He's young. He's got the ability. It's time to take him off the leash and let him go.
Yes. No, I agree with you there. I think last week I'd said that they were stalling with him, And now, all of a sudden, he's gone from being stuck in second gear to be flown in fifth gear. And phenomenal performance. A performance that, I can't lie, I didn't see coming because I thought Claggett, sort of stubborn, sort of durable, would take the punishment. He took it. He was probably taking it for, he shouldn't have taken it for as long as he did. And I thought, yeah, it's just a cracking performance. And those right uppercuts, oh my goodness. They were the difference, I thought, for Azim. And the sort of speed and everything that he had. And yeah, he just looked really good. And you talk about statements for a fighter, and certainly a fighter that is still as young as Azim. I think that's what people forget about Azim. He came into the pro ranks young, and how old is he now? Is he
24.
24. He's still got plenty of time, and I can understand where boxers were coming from, but when you've got someone doing that to Steve Claggett, who's only been stopped, I think, twice maybe now, you can't hold him back anymore now. You've got to just go to him. Look, if you won like that, that proves to us, and probably proves to the boxing world, that you're ready. Because Steve Claggett went 12 rounds of Teofimo Lopez. That night was, as I said, he was stubborn and durable against Lopez that evening. He looked like he was in a 15-round war, Claggett, after, 3 rounds. So, yeah, great win for Azim. Huge boost for him and Boxer as well. I just think, yeah, I can understand where people go as well.
Sorry about that. My series.
He doesn't understand me either, so I was trying to explain it.
My series doesn't agree with you.
No, but I can understand where people go with Azim. He was stalling a bit because obviously the positioning of where he was with the promotional company. If you can put that to a side now and forget about that and just go for what they want, and that's a world title fight. DeGaldo's got a fight coming up. He could fight the winner of that. I think a fight that I would love to see next for Azim is Subriel Matias. Fight him.
It's a tough fight without a title on the line.
If you're going on narratives, promoter Ben ain't here this weekend, and I'm not talking about Ben Shalom. Ben ain't here, sadly. If he was here, I reckon he'd be calling for that. I think everyone should be calling for it, because if you're looking at the paths of Dalton Smith and Azim, they're going to meet, they're going to clash. Hopefully we'll be still doing the podcast when that happens. But if Azim wants to make another statement, you just take the Subriel Matias fight, albeit that Dalton Smith stopped him again, yes, in January, but you go, Azim could stop him easily. Everyone went into that fight with going question marks about Smith, can he do it? I think when Azim fights Matias, he'll be going, when will Azim stop him?
Do you think?
I think, listen, I'm on the hype train now.
I think
I'm high on Adam Azim.
That might be a little bit steep. I mean, Steve Claggett's he's a good fighter, and he's a very, like you say, a very game, very tough sort of gatekeeper to the top level. But he is a beatable fighter, and I know not many people have beaten him in the manner in which Azim did. But he's an older fighter than any other person has fought him. He's got more miles on the clock than when anyone else has fought him. So I think a Subriel Matias fight without a world title on the line is an unnecessary risk. I understand. I know that that's maybe slightly hypocritical that I've said that Azim needs pushing, but not like that. I think it's difficult to find a gap in that division where you've got Shakur Stevenson, obviously a champion after beating Teofimo Lopez and feels relatively untouchable. Dalton Smith, world champion. Again, I think that's a very, very good fight, but I don't think we see it soon. Keyshawn Davis is obviously a brilliant fighter, and maybe that one doesn't happen. So I understand why you've picked Subriel Matias as a name, because he's there for a fight, but I don't know how I feel about it. There's Gary Antoine Russell, there's Pierce O'Leary, Mark Chamberlain in Dublin for the IBO world title. Is there a world where you make that fight?
Pierce O'Leary,
like Mark Chamberlain winner for
but
Adam
again,
Azim?
I think from what I've seen of Subriel Matias over the years that we've watched him, I think Azim will...
Say it. Say it with chest. If you're going to say it with chest.
I think Azim would comfortably beat him and stop him. I think.
It's bold.
I think it's bold, but I think, I'm just on the hype train at the moment.
No, I hear it.
I'm just going off of recent performances and recent memory of Subriel Matias, who Liam Parrow he lost to in Puerto Rico. By the way, what a call by me. Still one of the best call predictions maybe the podcast has seen. I've made some horror ones in the past, but that's probably my number one, and maybe Katie Taylor. But he lost that fight, and then he fought Dalton Smith, and I watched that fight and just went, if you give him to Azim.
I think you're misremembering that fight slightly. Dalton Smith had to eat some bombs.
He did
before he got the stoppage, and I know
think Azim can work around that. I think he's got that sharpness and
speed. I think he
speed
can, but I think the other problem is boxer aren't getting that on BBC. You can't afford Subriel Matias on the.
That goes back to the problem of Azim
on what they go at the moment, and I don't think you travel away to fight Subriel Matias without a world title on the line. I think that is a daft proposition. I agree. He's a very talented fighter. I agree. I don't think he's a million miles behind Dalton Smith in terms of ability and in terms of where he's at. But I don't think the Subriel Matias fight makes sense next. I don't necessarily know what the answer is. And don't get me wrong, if they're willing to roll that dice, then absolutely do it, because, there is every world where he does it. I'm still slightly apprehensive that we haven't really seen him properly tested in a long time. I think the Petitjean fight was the last fight where it was a bit of a 50-50 going into it. They've not given him the high level test, so you might want one.
But after fighting an opponent and the way he won on Saturday night, surely that gives him now a great deal of confidence. But like you said, the only problem with Azim now is he's still going to be, as much as I said, I don't think he'll be held back now. Just let him go off the lead. He's probably going to be held back still with BBC and Boxer. Because you said, I completely forgot about that. They ain't getting Matias in Britain for that with a BBC budget, are they? He probably has to go on a away tour for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do it. But yeah, you want him to start taking fights that have meaningful sort of wins that you can start building narratives with. And I think with Matias, you can do that because because you don't want him to fight against someone like Steve Claggett who went 12 rounds with Teofimo Lopez. You don't want that type of fighter anymore because he's proven what he can do, and you can't really take much from it. But you can take a lot from this because it was his sort of first real sort of fight where everyone was questioning whether he can get him out of there, and he did it so brilliantly. But I just think put him up against Matias maybe. There's a fight coming up soon as well because Hickshins is vacated because he's on Zuffa now. There's a fight, I think it's Delgado. You might have to help me here with the surname of this guy. We'll call him Arthur. Arthur.
Yes, the Canadian.
The Arthur guy.
Yes, I know who you mean.
For the vacant 140 title. So he's probably going to be watching that as well. And if Azim if he's watching that, then you know he's ready. Because if the person's watching it, the promoters and people can talk about it. But when the boxer starts talking about it, watching it, turning up, then you know he's ready. And he turned up on Saturday night, and I put it in the group chat. That was a statement.
It was a statement. I'll give you that. I will give you that.
It put people on notice. And I think for me, it was, I want to say maybe it was the first time I properly sat down and watched a BBC show as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Since they started.
I was certainly more impressed with Azim than I expected to be. So I suppose
Fran Hennessy as well had a good win on the card.
Fran Hennessy with another good win and keeping herself up in that picture. Maybe not the opponent that level-wise you'd want to see, but it can be difficult in the female divisions where there is a smaller pool of fighters. You kind of have to fight the very best or someone that you're probably better than. It's quite difficult.
But she's been dealt with the card she's dealt, isn't she? And it's a bit like Azim in his last couple of fights with Lemos. Imagine if he fought Lemos on Saturday now.
Yeah, it would have been another good win. Yeah,
he could have been one fight away from winning a world title if I'm right in saying so.
Yeah.
Apparently, Boxer are going to be filing a law thing against Lemos, apparently, according to Shalom. So can't blame him as well, mind.
I mean, it's bold. I don't know if it's entirely necessary, but
from the interview I saw, I think Lemos's manager said to do it, which is a bit strange from what Shalom's saying. So who knows?
Yeah, fair enough. The other few fights, I mean, it was such a busy weekend of boxing, so we're kind of it
was a weekend where
a whistle-stop tour around the world of boxing at the moment, but. The MVP show with Amanda Serrano obviously has some implications. First and foremost, Amanda Serrano picking up another really impressive win, sort of showing that outside of Katie Taylor, she is still very much one of the very best in the sport.
Yeah.
And probably, albeit we said, I don't know how many more fights there are out for her, I think she probably is still there to have a few more paydays, few big wins, maybe try and stamp that legacy a little bit further. I still think the Tiara Brown fight would be an intriguing one, in the sense of obviously Tiara Brown beating Sky Nicholson. Them two had a back and forth for a period in terms of Amanda Serrano and Sky Nicholson. Is there a world where you beat Tiara Brown and then maybe you try and fight Sky Nicholson, or do you just try and beat Tiara Brown to pick up the WBC title, which, is nothing to turn your nose up at?
You're looking at it now for Serrano. She's got a handful of fights left, I think. And on Saturday, I think she tied the record or something. I can't remember who the name of the woman that she tied the record with. I think something Martin, I think her name was. Christy Martin, yeah. Phenomenal. So she's going to be looking to get one over that maybe, and continue to build on it maybe, and extend that record. It was a great stoppage, pressured the referee into stepping in, which was good. I like the Tiara Brown fight, and I want to say that she's going to be fighting quite soon, Tiara Brown, because they were advertising her
a week or
for
two on another MVP show.
So it could be the fight next for Amanda Serrano. I called the fourth fight next week for Katie Taylor, and that's probably not going to happen. But she's got an incredible legacy that if she came out today or tomorrow and said, that's me done, you would have gone, fair play. What a career. And she was probably a part of the greatest trilogy in boxing, full stop. One of the greatest trilogies in boxing. And she's a phenomenal fighter and talent. And I'm not being funny, if she does call it a day sooner than later, she can be ambassador, because she has been that sort of flag bearer for women's boxing. When you started watching women's boxing and they were, midway on a card somewhere, kind of lost all the time. Now they're main eventing. Now they've got cards by themselves. I think it comes down to a number of fighters, but two of the fighters that you can thank. This side of the pond, it's Katie Taylor. The other side of the pond is Amanda Serrano. So, yeah, great win up for her on the weekend, as expected. But another fighter on the weekend, Holly Holm. What's happening there? Because another loss. That Katie Taylor fight now seems it's not going to happen. Stephanie Han, on the other hand, she's probably going to be looking for revenge for her sister now to fight Katie Taylor. So, yeah, another sort of card on the weekend that we got to give plaudits to, even though the crowd in Texas, were booing Jake Paul. And I was going, you can understand why. They're not booing Amanda Serrano, they're booing Jake Paul, which you can understand why they are. But if it wasn't for him, and if it wasn't for MVP and the sort of backing that they give in women's boxing, we wouldn't be talking about what's next for Amanda Serrano, because we would have gone, there's no intrigue, there's no interest. But now there's interest. Now there's the sort of backing that they've got. And I'm not being funny, fighting 3-minute rounds as well. It's impressive. And she made a brilliant point, I thought, at the end of the fight when she was speaking with Ariel Helwani, where she went, when you fight 3-minute rounds, you get time to put it, land your shots and, sort of get the feet in and get the range, and you can land those big shots. And it just proves that if they are given that extra minute, they can get more stoppages. And it was the same in the main event. Obviously, that went the distance. But the question is now, if they went 3-minute rounds, will we see more stoppages in women's boxing? And the question is, after watching Serrano, is probably yes.
Yeah, it's a really interesting sort of conversation point. I've spoken to a couple of fighters over the years, I think, about it. I spoke to Natasha Jonas, and her sort of main point in the matter was, if you want me to fight 3 minutes rounds, I'm more than happy to, but pay me such. Yeah. And at the moment, certainly from her experience, she said, I'm not being paid enough for me to want those extra rounds or extra minutes in the rounds. And I thought, what, fair enough. Hard to argue with that, really.
Point, yeah.
And then there is this sort of second argument in the sense of that 10 2-minute rounds has created a style of boxing and a number of fights, notably, obviously, Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, all of those, that are so exciting to watch, so entertaining. There's no feeling out period. There's just no time to try and establish control over a period. You just have to get going, and it's meant we get some really entertaining fights. Obviously, it's difficult because not one female fighter can speak for all, and Amanda Serrano has obviously been a flag bearer, but she doesn't speak for everyone. There are fighters out there that prefer the 10s. I just think they should have the choice, as any fighter should. I mean,
but now some of the organisations are coming out and backing them to do the 3-minute rounds. It could be something down the line that it may become a norm in women's boxing.
I think if two fighters want the 3-minute rounds, then I'm more than happy to see it. And I think there's fighters out there, Sky Nicholson we mentioned, that those 3-minute rounds particularly suit the more technical, the more the better boxers. But equally, I think we've seen so many great fights in those 10-2s. It would be, from a spectator's point of view, maybe a shame to lose that. But again, whatever the fighters want, they can have. They're the ones that are putting themselves in the ring. They're the ones that are getting punched in the face, not us. So they can make their decision on that. The other fight, I kind of to now pretty much go full circle and jump back to America. One of the first cards we spoke about, Omari Jones. Put in another top performance. Very similar actually to Dmitry Bivol in the sense of he dropped his opponent.
That's what I was literally going to say.
Very early on, and then basically didn't put a foot wrong from there on out, and just kind of
Do you reckon that would frustrate him? That for someone so young as well to get?
Yeah. I think I know he likes a stoppage, but he seems to have a sensible head on his shoulders, and therefore it's more beneficial long term to close out that fight. We've seen fighters like Abdullah Mason, for example, that, don't get me wrong, have entertained. That fight he had a few fights ago where I think there was 3-4 knockdowns in the first couple rounds, both
when he was still a prospect,
to both opponents, but eventually he got the stoppage. But you can't do that all the way. You can have that power, you can knock down that opponent, and there's a time and a place to really put your foot down. And I'm sure, Omari Jones has that in the locker, but you don't have to go in there every time and fight. Fight like your mortgage is on the line. Fight like it's the last fight you'll ever have. Sometimes it's better to just cruise to a victory, keep as few miles on that clock as possible, so that if you do get to a world title fight, you do get to a tough 50-50 fight, you've got a bit of leeway to it's not taking quite so much off your life, I suppose, at the end of the day, but also off your career. So yeah, I hear it. It's not always the most entertaining when they do so, but I'm never going to blame a fighter for going out there and just getting a comfortable victory.
No, exactly. And he looked good in it as well. And he took upon Abdullah Mason. I was watching that show back, and he came up with his next fight against Joe Cordina. The one thing I didn't realise, it was on the 4th of July, Cordina's going over to America to fight.
Yeah.
250th birthday of America, I think that is.
Independence Day, yeah. It's a bold day.
You talk about being an away fighter. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the it's fair to say that stadium or arena won't be too happy when or if Joe Cordina got the win on that night. Yeah. It would be but all the more reason, I suppose, to get him up for the fight. It's an interesting one. I'm looking forward to that, to be fair. And it's a
talk about Dragon's Den, mind.
Yeah, they were showing it on the thing. It's one of many clashes we're seeing between Top Rank and Matchroom. Obviously, Foster Ford being one.
Yeah. Xander Zayas,
Boots Ennis. We'd seen Andy Cruz, Murataya. So there's lots of interesting fights between those two. I'm happy both on DAZN now. So it's
you've got
DAZN
Ultimate as well, so you can watch that Xander Zayas Boots fight. Yeah.
Free for me. Well, it's not free. I have paid for it, but I get the sense you're still quite
No, the thing I'm not hurt about it. I wanted to pay for it, but when I went to DAZN to pay for it, it's because I pay through Apple or something.
Yeah.
It was fuming.
Game's a game.
I gotta wait until January next year now to resubscribe. Oh yeah,
I've got to say, I mean, we're not sponsored by DAZN or anything. They've not, but if anyone from DAZN is listening, I can genuinely say I quite enjoy the DAZN Ultimate package.
Well, you got Tommy Fury next week as well.
I mean, that's what I paid for.
That one when you were.
That's the only reason that I paid for the DAZN Ultimate, just so I could watch Tommy Fury, Eddie Hall. I mean, it's just such a.
Are you going to actually watch it?
No.
Okay.
No.
I might.
I know people.
Can I have your login?
People, yeah, more than welcome to. People throw around that statement of, if that fight was happening in my back garden, I wouldn't watch it. But genuinely, if that fight was happening in my back garden, I wouldn't watch it. I could not care less between that fight. I have no qualms with Tommy Fury. I met him and did an interview with him, would have been about a year ago now. Yeah. And it was an interesting interview. He was a lovely guy, very respectful, absolutely no problems with him personally. Eddie Hall, I love him. He's a great guy. I love the following him, but he's a world's strongest man. That's what I love him for. I don't need to see this.
Are we going to preview it next week?
If we must. We'll talk about it.
Surely we got
We'll talk about it. If you guys, let us know, if you guys watching that obviously kind of stick around. Obviously, if you're new, you can let us know as well. But those are guys who've been with us.
Week, though, this week that we got coming as well.
It's a good weekend. But yeah, people who've been with us a little while, let us know. Do you care for those fights? Do you want to know what we have to say about them? Or are you just, pretend they don't happen and move on? It would be interesting to know. But otherwise, yeah, this has been it's been a bumper episode review for this one, and we've got a nice preview show coming for you at the later on in the week on Thursday. We've got Josh Padley, Akib Fiaz. Obviously, that's the cancelled fight for
cancelled because it was 2 fights, wasn't it? Yeah.
Double cancellation on that one, and we've also got Zuffer's first fight in the UK, Chris Billam-Smith.
Can't wait for Dana White to say Bournemouth again.
Has he butchered the pronunciation?
I think it's brilliant when you hear someone like Dana White say it. It's brilliant. And I think it's brilliant that he's coming back to the UK, so I'm looking forward to it.
And I'm going to be honest with you.
And Bournemouth as well. That's what I mean where I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait for sort of the Americans to talk about Bournemouth, because normally when they come over, they talk about London, Manchester, not Bournemouth. So yeah, it's going to be brilliant. Yeah,
it's a good one. And obviously Chris Billam-Smith in a good fight. I'm going to be honest, when you look at the card, we'll save this a little bit for the but you look at the card, and it is filling a hole that we for a promoter that we've talked about in this episode. It's the exact kind of show that 16, 18 months ago that they were putting on. So we've had our harsh words about Zuffer over the time, but is Dana maybe getting us a little bit on side? You'll have to find out later on in the week.
Don't know about that.
On Thursday.
But punches chance. Punches Chance Podcast.